Jung once wrote that the animus corresponds to the paternal spirit of reason, just as the anima relates to the maternal soul of feeling. The animus draws his power from the world of thought and spirit, while the anima receives hers from the depths of emotion and sensitivity. Most of the time, the presence of the anima and animus goes unnoticed in daily life. They move quietly beneath the surface, shaping our perceptions, moods, and attractions without us even realizing it. But there are rare, life-changing moments when we meet someone who feels strangely familiar, as if we had been waiting for them all along. It is in these moments that the inner image within us and the real person before us align, or at least resonate so powerfully that it awakens something deep in the psyche. We are not only attracted to that person, we are drawn into them as if they were a missing fragment of our own being. However, unlike the romantic notion of soulmates or the myth that someone else can complete us, Jung believed that such encounters are not about completing each other, but about a process of self-discovery through projection. When the anima or animus remains hidden or unrecognized, their influence often expresses itself through projection. The person we fall for becomes the canvas upon which we paint all the qualities our soul longs for: wisdom, tenderness, courage, compassion, insight, or even salvation. Jung warned in his writings on the psychological aspects of the anima and animus that whenever we judge or idealize someone too strongly, we may in fact be facing our own projection. We think we are loving the person, but in truth, we are loving an image, a part of ourselves that has yet to be lived or accepted, and which the other has unconsciously brought to life. A common example is the experience of love at first sight, a feeling so strong it almost feels mystical. To Jung, this wasn't necessarily delusion or fantasy. On the contrary, he saw it as a sign that a deep archetype had been stirred into motion. Yet, if we fail to recognize this and remain caught in projection, we risk confusion and disappointment. We begin to demand that the other live up to the perfect image we have created, and when they cannot, the illusion collapses. This is why many relationships that begin with intense passion fade or end painfully, because what was loved was not the real person, but the symbol that person represented. But when we become aware of this process, everything changes. The anima and animus are no longer illusions, but bridges. They connect us with the lost or forgotten sides of our soul. The other person ceases to be only an object of affection. They become a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves that need attention, compassion, and integration. Jung expressed this beautifully in Man and His Symbols, where he wrote that the anima and animus are two archetypes of great importance for the psychic balance of a person. They act as pathways that lead us to the deeper layers of the self. That is why true love, especially the kind that feels fated, often feels symbolic and transformative rather than merely romantic. We are not simply attracted, we are moved, shaken, even reborn. The presence of the other awakens feelings, desires, and forgotten wounds that we may have buried long ago. They bring to the surface our tenderness, our longing, our hidden creativity, and our unhealed pain. They become both mirror and catalyst, sometimes comforting, sometimes challenging, forcing us to meet ourselves in the reflection of another soul. A timeless example of this can be found in the story of Dante and Beatrice in the Divine Comedy. Dante's love for Beatrice went far beyond physical affection. She became his symbol of divine wisdom and purity, guiding him through the darkest regions of the soul toward light and redemption. Beatrice was not simply a woman he adored. She represented the ideal anima, the spiritual force that leads one from despair to enlightenment. Through her, Dante's soul was transformed. His love was not about possession, it was about awakening the divine within. Ironically, Such profound loves often come with contradictions. The other person may enter our lives at the wrong time, in complicated circumstances, or even in ways that challenge our moral or social expectations. Yet, the pull remains powerful, persistent, and beyond reason. This is because these meetings are not orchestrated by the conscious mind or the ego, but by the deeper self, the center of the psyche where destiny resides. Jung once described the self as not only the center, but also the entire circle that contains both the conscious and the unconscious. The ego, he said, is only the center of awareness, while the self is the totality of who we are. When love awakens the self, it no longer feels like a choice. It feels like a calling, something sacred and undeniable. But the truth, as Jung saw it, is that the other person is never the ultimate answer. They are the question. They are the mirror that forces us to look again, to see who we really are beneath the surface, to challenge what we believe about love, and to begin the path of individuation, the process of becoming whole. Such relationships are not about completing each other, but about helping each soul become complete within itself. And when both people understand this, when both are committed to walking the inner path, that love becomes far more than a relationship. It becomes a spiritual ritual, an unfolding process in which each person learns to face their shadow, live in their truth, and rise beyond illusion to meet the essence of who they are. There are times when life refuses to give logical explanations. Instead, it gives signs, gentle hints, small alignments that speak a language only the heart can hear. Perhaps you are walking one day when an old song plays from a nearby cafe, echoing the thoughts you were just having about someone from your past. Or maybe a book falls open to a page that describes exactly what you are feeling. Sometimes you dream of a stranger's face, and weeks later, that very person crosses your path in an unexpected place. To Jung, these moments were not random. He called them synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that link the outer world with the inner world. In Synchronicity, a causal connecting principle, Jung described this as a phenomenon where two or more events occur together, not by cause and effect, but by meaning. These moments do not obey logical rules. They reflect an unseen connection between mind and matter, between the psyche and the world. When the inner condition of the soul finds a reflection in the outer world, the boundary between the two dissolves for a moment, and we feel the whisper of fate. When such synchronicity appears in love, it feels even more powerful. It can shake our very sense of reality because we realize that something greater is moving through our story. Picture life as a vast symphony. Each person is like a single instrument playing its own melody. Day after day, you play your part, sometimes softly, sometimes alone. Then one day from the distance, another melody begins to play, perfectly harmonizing with yours. You do not know why or how, but you feel that this is no accident. That harmony is synchronicity, the mysterious meeting point of fate and the unconscious, expressed through the music of emotion and symbol. Jung once shared an astonishing story of a patient who dreamed of a golden scarab, a sacred Egyptian symbol of rebirth. As she told him the dream, Jung heard a tapping at the window. When he opened it, a real golden beetle, a rare species in Switzerland, flew in. He caught it and handed it to her, saying, "Here is your scarab." That small event broke through her rigid skepticism and opened her to a deeper understanding of life's mysteries. It was not analysis anymore. It was direct experience of the unknown made visible. In love, synchronicity often appears as subtle repetitions and symbolic events. A person you thought of in the morning unexpectedly contacts you that same evening. A line from a book captures exactly what you are feeling for someone. A series of coincidences leads you to cross paths with a person who feels strangely important. These are not random tricks of chance. They are signs, like quiet lamps placed along the road of destiny, guiding you towards something your soul has already chosen. When you meet someone and feel that you are not meeting them for the first time, but rather meeting them again after a long, invisible separation, you are experiencing the mystery of synchronicity. Jung once said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections that it is as if part of the soul had always known and waited for that encounter. When this happens, love no longer feels like a decision. It feels like destiny choosing you. A beautiful image for this is the story of two rivers. Each river has its own journey, its turns, its storms, its quiet stretches. Then one day they merge, not through planning, not by command, but by the natural shape of the earth guiding their waters together. From a higher view, you can see that they were always meant to meet, drawn toward each other by the invisible design of the landscape. That is what synchronicity is. The sign left by nature and the soul to show that your path is unfolding as it should, even if you don't yet know where it leads. Fated love, therefore, is not always gentle or easy. Sometimes it challenges, sometimes it hurts, but it always transforms. For in such love, we are not simply finding another person. We are finding the hidden truth of who we really are. It might come when you least expect it, disguised as a challenge or a difficulty that shakes your comfort. But synchronicity never waits for the right time or for your convenience. It follows meaning, not comfort. You might find yourself standing at a crossroads, unsure which direction to take, feeling lost or uncertain. Then suddenly, a line from a poem, a small scene from an old film, or even the sound of sudden rain may stir within you the memory of that one person. In that instant, you don't need to think or analyze. You simply need to feel. As Jung once said, the unconscious expresses its purpose through events that may appear trivial from the outside, but echo within us with great power. If the collective unconscious is like the shared map of all humanity, then synchronicity is the private signal the universe sends to your soul. It is how the outer world moves in harmony with your inner world, not through logic but through signs, intuition, and that quiet sense of perfect timing, perfect place, perfect person. When love unfolds in this sacred alignment, it is not just a meeting between two people. It is a message from life itself, confirming that your soul is walking the right path. Sometimes, it only takes a tiny sign to awaken this knowing. A song that begins at the perfect moment, a soft brush of hands, a glance that makes time vanish. In those moments, you realize you are not alone in your journey. Something or someone walks beside you in silence. You don't have to understand what is happening, nor do you need proof. All you need is to trust that this has already been written deep within your soul. You are not discovering, you are remembering. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever lived through a coincidence so strange that it made you whisper to yourself, "This can't just be chance"? Tell your story, because your story might be the reflection that stirs another soul to awaken. Number 4, individuation through love, the journey toward the self. Many people believe that those destined meetings, those signs of synchronicity, are the ending of a long search, the final point after years of waiting. Yet in truth, they are not the end at all. They are the beginning, the first quiet door opening towards something deeper. For when the meeting happens, when the coincidences guide us to a person or an event, a new journey starts within. It is the journey back to who we really are. Jung named this process individuation, the slow, often difficult, yet essential path to becoming our true whole selves. Fated love, the kind that rises from the depths of the unconscious, does not come to keep us safe or comfortable in someone's arms. It comes to awaken the parts of us that have long slept, to draw us away from the easy light of familiarity into the unknown darkness we have avoided. The person we meet is not only a lover, they are a mirror, showing us our fears, our desires, our old wounds, and the parts of ourselves we have never dared to live fully. Jung once wrote, in the relations between the ego and the unconscious, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. True love, therefore, is not a safe place to hide from ourselves. It is the one place where we can no longer run away. Individuation means slowly bringing together the broken parts of our being, our reason and emotion, our light and shadow, our ego and our deeper essence. When love born of fate touches us, it often becomes the strongest force guiding this process. Not because the other person is perfect or saves us, but because they compel us to face ourselves in ways we cannot escape. You might believe you are strong until their absence exposes a hollow ache you can't fill. You might believe you are indifferent until one look from them brings tears for reasons you can't name. None of these moments are random. They are signs that your true self has begun to speak. In Psychological Types, Jung explained that individuation means becoming an individual, and since individuality embraces the most personal, unique essence within us, it also means becoming yourself. It does not mean reaching some ideal form of perfection. It means returning to your own wholeness, complete, authentic, and inseparable from your own essence. But this awakening cannot happen in isolation. We need a living mirror, someone who stirs the unexpressed sides of our being. Love, with all its contradictions, beauty, and pain, is often that living mirror. Many think love's goal is to find someone who brings happiness. But Jung saw it differently. Deep love is not meant to make us comfortable. It is meant to transform us. It removes the masks we've worn too long just to be accepted, and it pushes us into conversation with our shadow, the hidden parts we've buried or denied. When we find the courage to face that shadow in a relationship, we begin to reunite with the forgotten pieces of our soul. In Ion, Jung wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. We do not love others because they complete us. We love them because they awaken the desire to complete ourselves. They are not our destination. They are our companions on the inner path. They may stay with us for a lifetime or only walk beside us for a short while, but their presence always leaves a mark. It cracks the shell we built around our heart, and through that opening, the first light enters." Some ancient tales carry these same truths, hidden beneath their symbols. The story of Psyche, whose name means soul, reminds us of this. When Psyche fell in love with Eros, the god of love, it was not as a prize or a blessing. It was a summons. Her love for him sent her on a series of impossible tasks, fetching water from the underworld, sorting countless seeds of chaos, facing death itself, to learn what it truly means to live. The deeper Psyche went into fear, pain, and loss, the closer she came to herself. In the end, her love was not about Eros alone. It was about the rebirth of her own being. Symbolically, this story is not a romantic legend at all. It is a reflection of individuation. Love does not rescue our soul. It pushes it to rise, to act, to endure, and to return home whole. Jung once said that every person carries a private myth, and sometimes love is the first chapter of that myth. The chapter where the ego cracks so the self can emerge. In real life, it happens much the same. The person who haunts your thoughts, the one whose absence aches, the one whose glance dissolves your defenses, they do not arrive to finish your romantic dream. They appear to awaken the inner journey you've been avoiding. Individuation through love is not about perfection or ideal fantasy. It begins through real, honest connection, where two souls travel through each other's light and shadow. they help each other see what has been unseen. And if both choose not to run away and not to project their wounds, that love becomes the most powerful vessel for transformation. At that level, it is no longer about I love you or you love me. It becomes you help me meet myself and I help you become you. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung wrote, "Only what is oneself has the power to heal." True love is not about finding someone to fix us. It is about discovering, through love, that only we can heal our own soul. And that healing begins the moment we see our essence through another's eyes. Number 5, the ego's resistance and the role of pain. Individuation is never a smooth or easy road. After awakening, after the soul begins to move toward its own truth, what we first encounter is not light, but resistance. The ego, that identity we've built over years to protect ourselves and fit into the world, does not give up control willingly. It questions, fights, and defends itself. Strangely, the moment we meet a love that feels destined, a love that feels sacred, is also the moment our deepest inner crisis begins. Jung once said in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. To step into the light, we must first pass through the shadows. True love, the kind that awakens the soul, does not arrive to satisfy the ego's comfort. It comes to challenge it, to tear down illusions we've built about who we are. When we truly love, not just with our heart but with our soul, the beauty in us awakens, but so do the fragile and wounded parts. And it is here that pain becomes our greatest guide. Take, for example, a woman who meets a man who feels strangely familiar, the way he looks at her, the way his voice carries. Something in him feels as though she has known him forever. It can appear when you are least ready, disguised as a trial or a hardship that throws you off balance. But synchronicity doesn't care about convenience. It cares about meaning. You might stand at a crossroads, unsure and without direction, when suddenly a line from a poem, a scene from a movie, or even a sudden rain awakens a memory of someone you thought you had lost. In that instant, you do not need to analyze. You only need to feel. As Jung said, the unconscious makes its intentions known through events that look small on the outside yet echo inside us with great force. If the collective unconscious is the shared map of humanity, synchronicity is the private signal the universe sends to your life. It is how the outer world lines up with the inner world, not by reason, but through symbols, intuition, and a deep sense of right timing, right place, right person. When love grows out of that space, it is not just a bond between two people. It becomes proof that your soul is moving in the right direction. Sometimes a tiny sign is enough. A song starting at the perfect second, a gentle touch of hands, a look that makes time stop, to know you are not walking alone. Someone or something walks quietly beside you. You don't have to know exactly what is happening. You only have to trust that this was already written inside you. You are remembering more than discovering. Have you ever had a coincidence so strange it made you sure it could not be mere chance? Share it below. Your story may reflect and wake another person's soul. Number 4, individuation through love, the road back to the self. Many people think those fated signs and moments of synchronicity are the finish line after a long wait. In truth, they are the first small door opening. After the meeting, after the coincidences bring you to someone or something, a deeper path begins. It is the path back to yourself. Jung called this process individuation, a long, sometimes painful, always necessary journey if you want to live an authentic life. Fated love, the kind born from the depths of the unconscious, does not arrive to keep you safe in someone's arms. It comes to wake up the sleeping parts of you, to pull you away from familiar light into the dark places you never dared to enter. The other person is not just a lover. They are a mirror showing your fears, your longings, your wounds, and the parts of you never fully lived. Jung wrote in The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious that when two personalities meet, it is like two chemicals coming into contact. If a reaction happens, both change. True love is not a place to hide from yourself. It is the place where you can no longer hide. Individuation is the work of bringing together the broken parts of the soul, reason and feeling, light and shadow, the ego and the deeper self. When fated love touches you, it often becomes the strongest force for this work, not because the other person is perfect or rescues you, but because they compel you to face yourself in ways you cannot avoid. You may have thought yourself strong until their leaving exposed an emptiness you cannot fill. You may have thought yourself numb until a glance from them makes you cry for no clear reason. These moments are not random. They are signs that your true self has begun to speak. In Psychological Types, Jung explained that individuation is becoming an individual, and that individuality embraces the most intimate, incomparable uniqueness within us. It means becoming oneself. It does not mean becoming some ideal person, but returning to your own wholeness, complete and connected to your essence. You cannot do this alone. You need a living reflection, someone who awakens the parts of you not yet expressed. Love, with all its contradictions, conflict, passion, and pain, is often that mirror. Many believe love aims to make us happy. For Jung, deep love does not make you comfortable. It transforms you. It removes the mask you have worn so long to gain acceptance and pulls you into a conversation with your shadow, those parts you denied or hid in the unconscious. When you face your shadow in a relationship, you begin to reunite with lost pieces of your soul. Jung reminded us that the shadow is a moral problem challenging the whole ego, and that no one can become aware of the shadow without real moral effort. We do not love another to complete ourselves. We love because something in them prompts us to begin completing ourselves. They are not a place to rest, but a companion on the inward path. They may stay for a life or only walk with us for a short stretch, but their presence cracks the shell around the heart and lets light in. Ancient tales keep this truth alive. Take the myth of Psyche, whose name means soul. Her love for Eros was not a reward. It was a calling that forced her soul to face impossible tasks, pouring water from the underworld, sorting seeds, confronting death so she could learn to live. The deeper Psyche traveled into fear and loss, the closer she came to the truth of herself. That love was not ultimately about Eros, but about the rebirth of her being. Symbolically, this is not a romantic fairy tale, but a lesson in individuation. Love does not save the soul. It provokes it to rise, act, endure, and return whole. Jung said each person carries a personal myth, and sometimes love is the first chapter, the chapter where the ego breaks so the self can be born. In life, the one who haunts your thoughts, whose absence aches, whose glance melts your defenses, does not arrive to complete a romantic plot. They arrive to begin an inner work you can no longer put off. Individuation through love is not idealizing a relationship. It awakens through real contact where two people walk through each other's light and darkness, helping each other see what was unseen. If both are brave enough not to flee and clear enough not to project, that love becomes the deepest forge of transformation. It is no longer simply, "I love you," or "you love me." It becomes, "You help me meet myself," and "I help you become who you are." Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections that only what is truly oneself has the power to heal. True love does not come to repair us with another's hands. It comes to show us that we alone can heal ourselves. That healing starts when we glimpse our essence in another's eyes. Number 5, the ego's resistance and the role of pain. The road of individuation is not strewn with roses. After the first awakening, when the soul begins to turn toward its own truth, the first thing you meet is not light but resistance. The ego, the familiar identity built to survive, to control, to be accepted, does not surrender easily. It resists, defends, doubts, and denies. Paradoxically, the moment a love that feels destined touches you, the first wave of inner crisis often begins. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. You cannot step into the light without passing through suffering. True love summoned from the deep unconscious does not arrive to please the ego. It arrives to confront it and to shatter the illusions we have clung to for too long. When we love with our whole soul, the beautiful parts awaken, but so do the fragile, broken parts. Pain becomes the teacher. Imagine a woman who meets a man who feels familiar in the way he looks at her, in the way his voice carries. Even his silence stirs something deep inside her. She has never felt such a connection, but soon she grows anxious, afraid of losing him, easily triggered. Long-buried childhood feelings she assumed were gone resurface. The pain of abandonment, the sense of being invisible. She begins to react in ways she never has with anyone else. Not because he is cruel, but because he has unknowingly touched an old wound that never healed. Her ego fights back. It wants to retreat, to manage the situation, to avoid more pain. But if she finds the courage to stay with the pain, to observe it and speak to it, that love becomes a mirror reflecting the lost pieces of her soul. Jung said this is necessary for anyone who wishes to enter the deepest wholeness of being, the self. In Psychological Types, he noted that the ego resists the unconscious, and it is that resistance that makes self-knowledge so hard. No one wants to hurt, yet pain is where the soul tries to tell us something. When people suffer in love, many think the relationship must end. For Jung, the problem is not the relationship, but the ego's refusal to release old ideas of self. The relationship only exposes cracks already present in the psyche. If a destined love has power, it pulls buried things into the light. And light, as Jung said, is not only necessary but often hard to bear. In his clinical work and personal life, he stressed that inner crises within seemingly stable relationships are really breakthroughs from the depths. In Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, he wrote that the wounded physician heals. Only those who pass through their wounds can truly grow. Pain in love is not failure. It is a holy summons, a signal that the soul longs to reunite with the self. When we ache, we are not breaking apart. We are beginning to feel ourselves again. This is the starting place for individuation. You cannot enter wholeness without first knowing what it means to be broken. You cannot truly live until you have in some way fallen apart. Picture love as a sacred flame. When it first ignites, it gives light, warmth, and aliveness. But if you come too close, it can burn, causing pain and confusion. In that burning, the hard mask you wear starts to split, letting a softer, truer self speak. Jung observed that in personality development, we are not what we appear to be. Behind the persona lies the chaos of the unknown self. Love does not strengthen that mask, it breaks it. So instead of fleeing when love becomes painful, pause and ask, which part of me is speaking now? Perhaps it is the forgotten child. Perhaps it is the long-denied need to be seen. Perhaps it is the self waking you from the ego's long sleep. Number 6, love as a sacred gateway. After the shock, when the ego is tested and pain turns into teacher, something changes. You no longer see love the same way. A relationship stops being a means to possess someone or to fill an inner hole. It becomes a rite of transformation, a quiet initiation into the inner life. Love becomes a doorway, a spiritual gate that leads you back to the deepest layer of the self. Jung never treated love as only an emotion. In Psychology and Alchemy, he wrote that the experience of the self is a defeat for the ego. To touch the self, the ego must surrender its center. Love, when it arises from the unconscious, is the perfect place for this surrender. There is no situation where we are more exposed than in relationship, and nothing makes the ego tremble more than a love it cannot control. We live in times when love is often mixed up with romance, ownership, and personal comfort. True fated love, the kind that wakes the soul, does not come to complete us but to strip us bare. It leaves us exposed without masks. For that reason, it becomes one of the highest transformations a modern person can meet. Jung called this the hieros gamos, the sacred union of opposites within, masculine and feminine, thought and feeling, light and shadow. Often the ritual happens not in a church or on paper, but in the moment you look into someone's eyes and see yourself. A man who has always lived by reason, who controls his life and wins by society's standards, meets a woman who unsettles him. She forces him to feel and to soften. He cannot explain why he is moved. He wants distance, yet cannot walk away. Over time, he learns she did not come to complete him, but to awaken the soul inside him that had been repressed, the part that feels, that trusts what cannot be proved. Their love is not safe or easy, but it makes him feel truly alive. If he dares to go deeper, this love will open a new dimension inside him. Jung described the beloved as an inner guide, a psychopomp, a mythic figure leading the soul across thresholds. In Aeon, he said the self is often personified as a lover, a soul figure that leads the ego to change. The one you love with passion and fear may be a living emblem of the self calling you home. Not home to them, but home to a part of yourself you had lost. The key is this: they do not belong to us, and we do not belong to them. Here, destiny and freedom meet in paradox. Jung insisted inner wholeness does not come from merging, but from walking beside one another with freedom and awareness. No one is our other half. Each person is a whole universe, and true love is the resonance between two complete souls who still reflect and awaken each other. Think of the ancient fire rites. People walked into flames not to be warmed, but to be burned and reborn. In the same way, fated love does not instantly fix us. It shows what still needs healing. Vulnerability, friction, resistance, and the fear of loss are sacred parts of that rite. When we remain with that love without trying to own it, without needing to explain it, simply present and willing to change, the rite of individuation unfolds. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Deep love is a rare gift that can bring you there. No mirror is more honest than the one you love, the one you cannot fool for long, the one who reveals even the parts you would rather hide. If you are ready, love becomes more than feeling. It becomes a spiritual path and a sacred gateway. True love, then, is not a chase, but a journey of return between soul and self. It is where the ego melts. The shadow steps into light, the unconscious finds a living symbol, and the self begins to speak. Fated love is not a promise of forever, but a summons to what cannot be refused. It burns away what is temporary, so the inner truth can emerge. That love may come late, through wrong turns, stubborn resistance, and years of being lost. But if it is born of the depths, carrying the imprint of the unconscious and the voice of destiny, it will find its way. Jung wrote in his letters that what is truly meant for you will return even if you let it go. So when destiny calls and love is that call, no fear, distance, or circumstance can stop it from becoming real. It will not arrive how you expect. It will come how you are meant to meet it. When it comes, may we be brave enough to receive it, quiet enough to hear it, and honest enough to let it change us from within. If what you just read stirred something inside you, a memory, a pain, or a longing unnamed, click subscribe. This place is not just for stories. It is a space to keep walking home, step by step, through meaning, through symbols, and with a heart learning again how to listen.